Hello horror fans and welcome back to Top 5 Scary Videos, the scariest channel on YouTube, but we pull back the lid on the long lost lamentations of the internet. As always, I'll be your host Jack Finch, and today we're going to be keeping it extraterrestrial and take a look at 5 scary encounters with aliens.
He's trying to get out! Shut up! Guard your light! Guard the light! Run! Run! What the hell is it?
Now, I hope you all enjoyed our latest little appearance with the one and only Danny Burke. Make sure to head over to Most Amazing Top 10 and say a big hello from us. We're keeping in trend with the space theme, but we're stepping up one rung further and looking at those that claim they've encountered something much more tangible than the mere paranormal, actual alien life and the encounters that come with it. Before we begin, if you could be so kind as to hit that subscribe bell floating in the corner so you can stay up to date with our most terrifying uploads. Also, if you're a fan of this list or just top 5 scary videos in general, why don't you give us a thumbs up and share this video with your nearest and dearest. Coming in at number 5, we have the strange tale of Betty and Barney Hill. In 1961, snowbirds Betty and Barney Hill were making their way back home after a vacation in good old Niagara Falls. Now, it's important to note, as is usually the case in these kinds of reports, that Betty and Barney Hill were both upstanding citizens, deemed normal by society and their wider community. In other words, they weren't old crazy people. As they made their way south of the border, the couple saw what appeared to be a falling star, but perplexingly, it began to move around the sky, appearing to grow larger in mass. Here's where Barney commits his first horror no-no. Instead of staying on course and driving away on the highway, he decided to drive slowly and follow the light along another road. Eventually, he got so close that the object hovered roughly 100 feet in the distance. Here's where Barney makes his second no-no. He got out of the car and he took a closer look. According to Mr. Hill, it was a strange craft with 8 to 10 humanoid looking creatures dressed in black uniforms. Horrified, the pair got back in the car and sped away. However, when they frantically returned home, they realized that a trip that should have took them 3 hours mysteriously took them over 7. Did they just get lost on the detour, or did they end up having a little chat with their newfound friends? What do you think? Next up at number 4, the Gundiah Mackay abduction. This one is just plain weird. 3 different people were involved in this story and they all corroborate the exact same thing. On October the 4th, 2001, at a property in Gundiah, Australia, 22-year-old Amy Rylance was abducted by a flying craft as she slept. Her husband Keith and their friend Petra both witnessed this event in action. According to Petra, she saw Amy being pulled out of the window by a strange, bewildering light after being alerted by the sound of shattering glass. The pair were completely perplexed and searched the property for Amy, but they could find her absolutely nowhere. After calling the police, Keith and Petra were initially suspected of foul play, believing that they'd killed Amy and made up a story just to get away with it. Bizarrely enough though, just an hour later, police received word of a woman who'd been found wandering lost on a remote highway in the city of Mackay, which is a 9-hour drive away. 9 hours. When they found Amy, she claimed that she'd been kept in a strange metal room by a 7-foot tall, calm, ethereal being. Afterwards, she had strange triangular marks on her thigh, which were documented by police, and bizarrely enough, her body hair had grown excessively over a period of few hours. What the hell? What do you guys think? Swinging in at number 3, Robert Taylor. Robert Taylor was a forestry worker who lived in Livingston, Scotland. He was heading down into the woods one day, I think there's a song there, when he turned a corner and just like that, he saw a UFO parked in a field. All of a sudden, Robert said that 2 small, strange spheres were fired out of the object and they made a clattering sound as their spiky surface plowed through the earth. They attached themselves to Robert, dragging him back towards the vessel. He said that he could smell a strong, sickening odor before he completely lost consciousness. What happened? Well, still no one knows, but when Robert awoke, he'd moved further down the field and his dog was there, barking wildly in panic. When he tried to calm his dog down, he noticed that his voice was gone and he felt incredibly weak with the inability to walk. He ended up crawling all the way back home, where he found his wife in tears. He looked terrible and he'd been gone for over a day. Police began an investigation, but still to this day have no explanation for the bizarre events that transpired. Spooky, eh? And coming in at number 2, the Manhattan abduction. Well, here we go again. It's a bold enough claim in itself. To claim that you were abducted by a UFO right out of the window of your Manhattan apartment, that takes it to a new level. Strangely enough though, the Manhattan abduction is one of the most well documented abduction cases cases of all time. Originally aliased as Linda Corteil to protect her identity, this New York woman claimed that a beam of light drew her from her apartment window as a small girl, all the way to the top of the building and then into a strange metallic vessel. She was taken through a series of mysterious hallways until she was strapped to a table and subdued by tall humanoid creatures. Kind of sounds like the standard abduction shtick, right? Well, wrong, because this event was actually witnessed by two United Nations bodyguards who were stationed with a diplomat in a nearby building. They saw the whole thing, a little girl suspended by a beam of light taken into a strange metallic vessel. Well, even stranger, the two bodyguards would later go on to be afflicted by severe psychological maladies, some say as the result of their report. Kind of makes you think who or what was involved, eh? And finally, at number 1, the Allagash alien abductions. Now, this is my favourite, the absolute classic. A few guys in the deep woods, aliens slip them up in a tractor beam, they wake up in the morning with no recollection, probes, you get the picture. But in actuality, the Allagash abduction has a little bit more to it. In 1976, 4 friends in their early 20s went camping one weekend in rural Maine. They were Jack, Jim, Chuck, and Charlie, who kind of sound like something straight out of a Stephen King novel. On their second night out in the woods, they noticed a strange, incredibly bright light floating ominously on the horizon. On the third night, as they were night fishing, the light appeared again, so they decided to shine their flashlights right at it, when all of a sudden the light expanded and enveloped all 4 men. Lights out, they remember nothing. They woke up back at their campsite with no recollection of the events that had just transpired between them being in their boat and not being in their boat. The fire, which had been roaring just minutes before, burned down to nothing but embers. Well, after this strange occurrence, the men started to have similar nightmares of humanoid beings with long necks and large heads with large metallic eyes and insect-like fingers. They began drawing what they saw in their dreams, and after a while they connected the dots and realized they were having the exact same shared nightmare, remnants of consciousness left over from their reported abduction. So coherent was their shared story that experts began analysing the group, and although the results are undocumented, the 4 men were deemed mentally stable and they all passed lie detector tests about the event. Makes you wonder whether a clear, corroborated story is evidence enough for proof of the paranormal. Well, what do you guys think? Have you ever had your own extraterrestrial event? How do you feel about alien abductions? Personally, I'd be honoured to be one of the few humans picked up by an advanced spacefaring species. Who knows, maybe they're even listening to this list. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button or the thumbs down, because you have every right to do so. As always, it's been a pleasure compiling this list for you, fellow horror fans. You've been watching Top 5 Scary Videos. I've been your host, Jack Finch, and until next time, you take it easy.